Pokemon Red and Green versions began development in 1989 and were considered complete and fit for a release in 1995. It took a long time because of the problems surfacing along the way. These were considered at the time to be due to the game being on the cutting edge of a new technology, because of the programmers were overcoming bugs that no one had to work around before. In 1992 to 1993, when the first playable selections of the game were completed in alpha form, it was started a long struggle. HM moves didn't exist at this point. Instead, the player had to use items just to get around. For example, the surfboard item allows the player to surf across the water. This item was still in the programming when the beta version was released, and some more hardcore gamers managed to hack into the game again. Instead of cut, the player would use an item, axe, on trees instead of flash. If you used a candle, the escape rope was supposed to be replaced by dig, but for some reason that item wasn't removed. It made perfect sense, and it seemed to work just fine, until one of the alpha version testers used a candle inside the building. The screen fogged up in the smoke screen, the attack animation covering everything. A text box appeared saying, "Hurry, get away." The door sound played, and the character would be returned to the overworld, to the building that would be blackened, and you could no longer enter it. The axe worked perfectly fine for removing small trees. It also worked perfectly fine on people and some sections of fences that hemmed within the entire playable world. Upon using the axe on the human NPC, the sprite would vanish and be replaced with a small patch of dark pixels. This almost looked like the blood it was meant to represent the red version, and slightly odd in green. It became a morbid joke among many testers, who all assumed were things that were programmed in just to try and spook them, and that they would be removed from the final versions. They were, mostly. Escape rope was considered a step too far by some. Upon the player standing and facing the doorway, if you were to select the escape rope, it would form a noose and the player would be hung. The only way you can get out of this was to switch the game off and continue from the last save. One of these testers left, and a new person was hired in his place. The new guy didn't appreciate the sick jokes that the programmers played on the testers, and the other simply just laughed it off, and told them not to be so touchy. He insisted. However, these were children's games, and the programmers shouldn't be adding these things, even if they were temporarily meant as a joke. That was so long ago. I've forgotten his name, Kenta or something. He compared the higher-ups to the add-on extras, and the programmers were questioned, and one of them was even fired over the incident. The claim that they were trying to waste time and resources. To be fair, by this time we had music and basic sound effects in the game, which made the extra effects even more gruesome. Using an axe on the person would grow trigger high-pitched squealing, along with the disappearance and a puddle of blood. Burning buildings had also added repetitive crackling sound effect. It was meant to intimidate fire for the best old technology's ability. Lastly, if the escape rope was used, a singular crack would play. None of the programmers actually ever owned up to putting the dark extras in. They claimed that they'd never seen them before, but they began to suspect each other when they realized their jobs were on the line. Who knows if that programmer that was actually fired had something to do with it? It was decided that the items would be scrapped entirely, and HM moves were invented, enabled to the player that progressed instead. The remaining programmers found it a lot of trouble attempting to erase the items from the code. They reported to burying the items to render unsuitable or inaccessible. The effect was the same as erasing them, right? It worked, and the whole incident was forgotten until the beta versions were released to the public. Hackers started taking interest in the game's coding. There were infamous incidents surrounding Lavender Town and the music that so badly affected younger players, but there was one or two cases which the hackers had uncovered and buried the items in the game's coding, and the disturbing images that came up was combined with the overall music caused them to completely lose themselves. Almost no records of what happened existed, but I remember hearing on the news back then a high school student had taken an axe to her classmates. She's pulverized them so much possible, turning them into indistinguishable puddles of human flesh. Her surviving friends said she had become obsessed with her new Pokemon game in the time leading up to her attack. One of them, in an interview for a TV news bulletin, described her as a maniac for Pokemon. She was always excited about the secrets in the games. The axe-wielding girl, of course, was hospitalized. She never spoke a word to anyone, but the nurses that took care of her claimed to have heard a hum in the tune at night. They said it was creepy and unsettling, and made them feel uncomfortable. The girl is in her 30s now and hopefully is still somewhere secure. An older fan of the games had his office building burned down, just months after the incident with the girl and the axe. It was played off by media as nothing more than a tragic accident. After all, fire is quite common risk in old, multi-story buildings full of paperwork. The strange thing about it was that the only survivor was the man, apparently. He had left the building pre-emptied, blocking the doors as he went. All the police managed to find was that the fire had started in the stationery cupboard, the only evidence of being a pool of melted wax amongst the charred shelves and debris. He claimed that the tragedy shocked and horrified him, and that he had nothing to do with it. He was still in upper suspicion. The police had found several boxes of candles and a few hacked copies of Pokemon Red and Green in his apartment. I don't remember if he was ever convicted Harrison after that. I just remember the news bulletin board on the TV showing a burnt cartridge in the man's home. There were more, all hushed up and forgotten in time, but when the modern world's computer technology and game ROMs and so on, there is a risk that someone might be able to uncover these items again, unless the newer versions in the old alpha coding was successfully removed, but no one would have been looking for it in order to do so, would they? The thought terrifies me. I don't think I can handle seeing these things happening again, knowing that I was a part of it, that some might eventually find me and question me. The music plays in my ears every day, and that tiny pulse of Lavender Town. Although I've survived it for so long, it's time to end the struggle. I'm writing this now as a warning to anyone who may read it. Don't go look for the buried items. My escape rope is waiting. What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Ms. Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, stay pretty.